In this session, we are going to learn about clusters. Clustering is a very wonderful technique to segment customers. In fact, segmentation of customers is at the core of what marketers do, what businesses do. Because if you can identify new segments of customers, you can create products, you can create service, you can sell in a different way, and basically you can make money. So segmentation is a very, very important aspect in business, particularly in marketing. Hence, this clustering technique is a very important technique, and we are going to learn how to identify clusters using Power BI. Okay, but before getting into how to develop clusters using Power BI, let's understand this concept of clusters a bit more in detail. If you really look at machine learning, which is the technology that is driving artificial intelligence, essentially comprises of two different techniques. One is known as supervised learning, and the other is known as unsupervised learning. What is supervised learning? Here, labeled data is available. Let's say, for example, you are interested in finding out details of customers who are likely to churn or leave a service provider. What is known as churn data set. Okay. In this data set, you will have details of customers and also details of customers, details of transaction, many other details, the scheme details, so many details about customer interactions, customer transactions, customer profile. They are all available. Along with that, the reference to whether the customer churned or not is also available. This kind of reference is also called as labeled data or output data. Okay. In supervised learning, we always have this labeled data. Many times, many organizations, big and small, do not have this labeled data readily available. Okay. In fact, that is one of the impediments, one of the biggest impediments for an organization to embrace machine learning. This kind of labeled data is not available in many organizations. What should those organizations do? They can pursue unsupervised learning, because in unsupervised learning, there is no need for labeled data. There is no need. You have customer information, transaction information, profile information, scheme information. Like this, different kind of information about the customer is available, right? Those information can be used in an intelligent manner in unsupervised learning. In unsupervised learning, all that we are interested is grouping. Okay. The other word for grouping is clustering. Okay. The other area where unsupervised learning is used heavily is known as outlier detection. I will talk about that also, in this session. Okay. So this is the background to customer segmentation. This is the background to clustering. Okay. Even when you don't have labeled data, which is one of the essential requirements in machine learning and artificial intelligence solutions, an organization or an individual can still pursue the techniques available in machine learning and get meaningful insights. And that technique is known as unsupervised learning. Okay. Why am I talking so much about unsupervised learning and clustering? Because clustering is based on unsupervised learning. So what you are seeing in Power BI is an AutoML feature. What is AutoML? Automated machine learning. That is, you derive insights about your data set using a machine learning technique without writing a single line of code. Okay, that is AutoML. AutoML is automated machine learning. So the clustering technique that we are going to see in Power BI is actually an automated machine learning approach, right? So you understand there are two types of machine learning, supervised and unsupervised. Clustering comes under unsupervised. This is more useful when labeled data is not available, right? Please note this. I don't have this reference or output data that is normally there in supervised learning data sets. That is why I gave the example of churn prediction. If you're pursuing fraud, references to fraud is there. That reference to fraud is known as labeled data. Okay, so that labeled data is not there in unsupervised learning. Clear? Now let's get into Power BI and create clusters. First we will see clustering for a two-dimensional data set. Okay, I've already loaded the data set, and the data set involves customer, age, sex, annual income, spending score, and the year. Okay, so this is the data set that I'm going to be using for demonstrating a two-dimensional cluster. What is a two-dimensional cluster? That means I'm taking only two dimensions, either annual income, age, annual income, spending score, age and spending score, like that. A multi-dimensional clustering will involve taking all the dimensions that are there in our data set, right? That is age, sex, annual income, spending score, year. I consider everything in a multi-dimensional cluster. In a two-dimensional cluster, I am considering only two factors, right? So let's go and create a visual to get started. For this, we will be using scatter chart. Okay, Scatterplot, as many of you may be knowing, involves a visual where the relationship between two factors is studied, right? So we are going to use Scatterplot for the purpose of creating a two-dimensional cluster. So let's choose two numeric variables. We are choosing age and we are choosing annual income, right? So if you see, there is only one single point. We actually want it for all the data points. So we will drag customer ID into the values area. Now you will see data has been populated for all the customer IDs, right? Before I show you automatic generation of clusters, I want to show a two-dimensional magic quadrant, right? What is a two-dimensional magic quadrant? So let's go to formatting and let's add a constant line. I want to add a constant line at the middle of my X and Y axis. That's what I'm doing here. We will first do it for the X axis, right? We chose 35, maybe the midpoint is around 40. Let's choose 40. We will format this line and make it into a black line, and we will also remove the dotted line and make it a solid line, right? You can see this. I have now created a x-axis constant line. Now I'm creating a y-axis constant line. You can name the y-axis constant line also. If you see here, I'm not naming it, right? I'm choosing what Power BI is providing as y-axis constant line. And I'm choosing the midpoint, changing the color and changing the style to solid one. Now can you see here, I have created a 2x2 magic quadrant. I have created a sort of customer segmentation, right? So there are 4 customer segments. I have created in a very simple way. What you see on the lower left hand side corresponds to annual income being low and age is low, right? And the one on the right lower part, age is high, income is high, right? Can you see here? So I have created 4 clusters or 4 quadrants. So these are clusters, right? You're getting very useful information about customers. You have 4 segments. You can now go and take action as may be appropriate, right? A simple way I've created a magic quadrant. right? A 2 by 2 magic quadrant. Certain customers are in high income, high age. Certain customers are in low income, low age, right? So I have 4 quadrants, right? What is known as a 2 by 2 quadrant. 2 by 2, 2 multiplied 2 is 4, right? So there are 4 quadrants. So there are 4 clusters, right? Are you understanding what I'm trying to do here? I took 2 data, created a scatter plot, incorporated a constant line both for x-axis and y-axis. I now have a magic quadrant, 4 quadrants, what is known as a 2 by 2 matrix or a 2 by 2 magic quadrant. Okay, I'm using the word magic quadrant because that is the terminology that is used in the world of business. Business people and marketers want to segment customers, want to create this 2 by 2 magic quadrant. So marketers and business people can understand the preferences of customers, insights about customers, right? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create clusters automatically. This is the AutoML future, right? So when I click this automatically find clusters, Power BI is going to select clusters for me. It is going to come up in different colors, right? Previously we created clusters using constant line, right? Now I am letting Power BI identify clusters automatically. Can you see here? You can choose the number of clusters. You can choose 4 or 5. I am letting Power BI decide and hence I am choosing auto. Let's give OK. Just wait for a moment. Can you see? Power BI has identified 3 clusters, beautiful clusters. Now I want to remove the constant line, x-axis and y-axis, so we can clearly see what Power BI is suggesting. Isn't this wonderful? Power BI has identified 3 clusters. Using the manual magic quadrant approach, we were able to identify 4 clusters. But Power BI is automatically finding or indicating 3 clusters and they are automatically indicated in different colors. Isn't this wonderful for us? I said in the beginning of the session that clustering can be used to identify even outliers. How will you identify outliers in this? Data points or customer points that are away from the center of the cluster are potential outliers. See this point, see these 2 points, they are quite far from the cluster. The cluster is here, right? These 2 points, these 2 points, similarly these 2 points. If you see this particular cluster, there aren't many outliers. Whereas see this one, these two points and these 2 points clearly stand out. So please note, you can use clustering to identify outliers also. Now we are going to see how to identify clusters when more than 2 variables or 2 factors are considered. That is what is known as a multidimensional clustering approach. For this we will be using the table visual where I am going to be dragging all the numeric variables that are available in our data set. What are the numeric variables available in our data set? First let's drag customer ID, then let's drag age. Age is a numeric variable, annual income is a numeric one, and spending score is also a numeric one. So we are considering more than 2 numeric variables for the purpose of identifying clusters. So this is what is known as a multidimensional clustering technique. So when I drag all these factors or variables or columns, I see only one entry or one row. That is because Power BI has automatically summarized. So let's click Don't Summarize, and now you will see information pertaining to all the customer IDs. Now head over to the top right hand area, that is 3 ellipses you can see. Click the More options, identify automatically find clusters, right? So here you can choose auto, or you can mention 4, or you can mention 3, right? Let's give 4 and see what happens. So I've identified 4. You can leave auto also. Auto is also one of the options, right? So we have given 4 and let's click OK. Now you will see 4 clusters being identified for our data set. It will appear, the cluster information will appear as an additional column. Now see here, it is also showing up here, right? It is showing up as a field. So what is the advantage? I can get information of different clusters. I can find out what is the average age, what is the average income, what is the average spending score of the different clusters that are there in my data set. Can I show this visually? It is difficult, right? If it is 2 factors, I can show a scatter plot and show the clusters. When you have multiple factors, you cannot do that, right? You cannot represent a multi-dimensional graph on a 2-dimensional screen, right? You cannot create a visual in a multi-dimensional clustering. In a 2-dimensional clustering, you can do it. The screen on which you are seeing this particular video is 2-dimensional, right? It is not 3-dimensional. Are you getting it? But I can use this information in a different way. So let's create one more table here, right? Let's center it. We will drag the cluster ID information. We will add the age, annual income, and the spending score. Can you see here? This information is there for each of our clusters, right? Unfortunately, Power BI has auto added these information. Now what do? We will say make it, sorry, not sum, we will choose average. Similarly for spending score, average. Similarly for annual income, average. So just with a few clicks, I have very useful information about clusters that are there in my data set or the customer universe. How can marketers use this information? How can business people use this information? Create new products, create new service, launch a promotional scheme, right? Offer discounts. Remember, the purpose of business is to make more sales and make more money in profits. Customer segmentation is a very, very important means to achieving those objectives. And what we have seen today is a means to businesses making more money. In order for businesses to make money, they need to create new services, new discount opportunities. And for that, customer information that exists in different segments, different clusters is very, very important. And we are able to do that in a very short span of time, right? If you want, you can even identify what is the minimum income. We can identify what is the maximum age in my cluster. All sorts of further analysis is possible. What I demonstrated is average, right? Instead of that, I can use any one of this. I can use variance, I can use standard deviation. All these information are useful to marketers, useful to business people, right? In creating new products, services, discount opportunities, right? Isn't this wonderful?